Hi there, I'm Alicia13, and this is a video of my attempt on Pokemon Platinum Hardcore Randomized Nuzlocke. This video will follow my fourth attempt, as the previous ones didn't make it very far and haven't been included so that the video won't be an hour long. I'll put the Hardcore Nuzlocke rules on screen, but in short, if a Pokemon faints, is considered dead and can't be used anymore, level caps in place, no items except held items in battle, I must nickname all Pokemon, and I will be playing with Dupes Clause. So this time, my starter choices were Magnemite, Dratini and Mudkip. I pick Magnemite this time, giving the rival Dratini, and I nickname him Stee. We go back and talk to our mom, she gives us the journal and tells us to go on our merry way. The rival's mom comes in, gives us a parcel to give to him, and then we go on our way to start our lovely adventure. On this route, Route 201, we find a Clefable and end up catching her. We give her the nickname Amy. On Route 202, our encounter is a Glameow, which we end up catching and giving the nickname Lulu. We go into the trainer school and we find our rival and deliver the town map to him, and he ends up giving us one as well. And we pick up a random blue shard, which has no relevance at all. On Route 204, our encounter is a Kirlia, which we catch and nickname Steph. Here, we are training up our Pokemon, and we have Amy out, and we roll self-destruct, killing her. In the Ravaged Path, however, our encounter is a Luxray, which we catch and give the nickname Barker. We skip over the rival fight east of Jubilife City and encounter a Kabuto called Sam. In Orberg Gate, we encounter a Shiftry, who we give the nickname Marcus. Rourke leads Cherubi and I lead with Lulu to fake out. We then kill the Cherubi with a couple of scratches after being leech seeded and gain some experience, so this brings out Growlithe, which uses Intimidate. Because of the attack drop, I go into Barker, who gets off an Intimidate of his own. Barker then KOs with a couple of Sparks after taking just one layer. This then brings out his next Pokemon Delibird, which we hit with a Spark and KO. This was his ace, surprisingly. So yeah, easy first gym badge. As we're heading north from Jubilife City, we come across two Team Galactic grunts, and Rowan and Lucas. The Professor congratulates us on getting our first gym badge so soon after starting our adventure, and the grunts are upset by this, and then Rowan insults them for some reason. I don't know, it was very strange. But they want to battle, but the Professor lets us handle it. Thankfully this battle was pretty easy, and with the help of Lucas's Mudkip, we wipe them up easily. Rowan and Lucas ponder about what they're doing or what they're wanting or something, say that we're doing great, something, I don't know. In Floroma, this lady asks us if we need to be emotionally healed too. Why yes, especially after our next encounter, a Palkia, which we end up catching and naming Joe. In the Valley Windworks, we're met by Commander Mars, who wants to battle us, and we beat them easily with the help of our Luxray, and save this little girl's father, who immediately rushes in and calls her dad Stinky. Nice. Outside, we're met by Lucar, who is here to offer his help. But of course, after everything's done, so he leaves. In Eterna Forest, our encounter would have been an Aerodactyl, but I didn't realise how low of a level it was, and I end up killing it. In Eterna City, we're taking a nice stroll with Gavin, our rival, and we come across Cyrus, admiring the statue of our nice new Palkia. Ah, he then leaves. However, later on, we come across this nice lady, who introduces herself as Cynthia, who's a trainer just like us. She seems really nice. She tells us a bit of lore, and gives us the HM01, which is cut. This lady seems really nice, she won't cause us any problems. So Gardenia leads off with Grimer and we lead with Lulu to fake it. We hit a bite with Barker, which brings it down to the red, but then she heals up with a super potion. We then hit a Spark, which gets the paralysis, as she uses Sludge and gets the poison. After a few turns, we do eventually manage to take it out with Bite after Spark gets disabled. This brings in her next Pokemon Camerupt, so we switch into Shiftry, and then bring in Joe to KO with a Water Pulse. She then brings in her last Pokemon Electabuzz, and I wasn't really scared until he hits another low kick, KOing Joe. I made a mistake. We bring out Lulu to hit a fake out for some chip damage, but this gets healed up with a berry. Shockwave does over half to Lulu, and I just stay in and sacrifice her, unfortunately. I then decide to bring out Steve. We survive 2 shockwaves on 8 HP, but it isn't enough and he goes down. We then bring in Barker to finish the KO. So now we need encounters, so then we revive a fossil into a Rhyperior, which we call Tony. In the old chateau, our encounter ends up being a shuppet, which we catch and nickname Pearl. Unfortunately, however, I then decide to go and check out the TV for the static Rotom encounter, but this gets randomised into a freaking Mew. Well, I think we missed out here, but it's okay. We then run into Luca in the Team Galactic building, who proceeds to take off his disguise in front of all the grunts, but at the top we come across the Commander Jupiter, which we win easily with the help of Tony. Team Galactic now leaves and we save the bike guy. However, we do end up losing Sam, our Kabuto, to a random Mudkip using Bide. I was not expecting that. Well, not too big of a loss I guess, because here in the Wayward Cave that we're exploring, we come across an Electivire, which is amazing. I've never had a chance to use an Electivire before, so that's nice. We catch her and call her Jane. In Mint Cornet we meet Cyrus, but I wasn't listening to him because I was more excited about the Eevee encounter from BB, which was randomised into an Empoleon called Clive. In the battle against Fantina, she ends up leading with an Oddish as we lead with Steph. After a few turns of going back and forth with some attacks, we do emerge victorious with one last confusion from Steph. This brings out her Dusknoir, which is really scary. We bring in Tony, but he's immediately confused and hits himself in confusion, and is not able to do very much before we switch out into Marcus, who kills with a couple of faint attacks through confusion as well. This leaves Fantina with just one Pokemon, and it ends up being Parasect, which is a little scary for Marcus. We stay in and hit one attack, and then bring in Barker, who hits a few sparks and is brought low. We then bring in Clive, who is put to sleep with Swords Dances and KOs. There's another fight with Gavin as we're trying to leave Hearthome City, but with the help of Tony we defeat him easily. On Route 209 we go to try and find our next encounter. I'm liking how our team's looking, but we'll see what we get. It ends up being a Teddiursa, which we catch and give the nickname Winston. So we're fighting this random trainer next, and I thought that I would be able to take out Ursidra no problem, but this wasn't the case as I hit a magical leaf and then get taken out. Which is a little unfortunate, but we do end up getting a good replacement from this guy who gives you the Porygon and Veilstone. It gets randomised into an Espeon, which we call Eric. I found this interaction with the Massage Lady very strange, because if you say no, she says that she's not doing anything shady with your Pokemon, which is strange. But on Route 214 we catch this Trapinch, which we call Terry, and in the Valor Lakefront we end up running into a Mesprit, which we catch and we nickname Flutter. We then go to take on Maylene, who leads with a Riolu, and we lead with Barker, and get an Intimidate off. We one-hit KO it with Spark, which causes her to bring in her next Pokemon, Weezing. I bring in Empoleon to dodge the poison move, which pays off. He then hits us with Assurance, which isn't very effective, so that must be his best move against us, so we just stay in and hit him with a few Bubble Booms, knocking him out. This leaves Maylene with only some Flora, so we switch out into Marcus, and then hit her with a Feint Attack as we take a very weak Razor Leaf. We hit another Feint Attack, giving us the victory and our third badge. The rival fight outside of Wake's gym is going fine until he brings in his level 36 Dragonite, who, on my switch to Pearl, sits up with Agility. I stay in to try and Will-O-Wisp it, and we survive on 3 HP, but we do manage to get the burn. We then switch into Barker for an Intimidate. I panic switch a few times until we get in with Clive, who takes a couple of Dragon Rages and knocks it out with a Metal Claw. That was scary, but now it's time for the gym battle with Wake, who leads with a Taurus as we lead with Barker, who we knock out with a few Sparks. This brings in Ambipom, so we bring in Pearl. I'm a little scared of this thing because I don't know what moves it learns, but I decide to play it safe and go into Barker for the Intimidate. I then decide to go back into Pearl just to see what it has. It had went for double hit, so I figure that it's not going to have anything to hit Pearl, so I burn it and curse it. It ends up using Fling at us to use a Citrus Berry, and we do eventually stall it out enough and take it out with a Shadow Sneak. His last Pokemon is Seeking, and we swap out into Marcus and kill it. Gavin is waiting outside the gym and says something about a bomb, but then we find him fooling around here. Gosh, how useful is he? We meet up with Wake outside of the marsh as a bomb goes off, and then a Team Galactic grunt comes running out, and then the grunt runs away, and then Wake ends up going inside to try and protect the marsh, and then Gavin is just goofing around as usual. We chase down the Galactic grunt and then he challenges us to a fight, but we take him out very easily with Barker. The grunt ends up running away again, but then Cynthia comes. And, I don't know, she tells me something about the lake, she gives us some lore or something, I wasn't listening. Gavin shows up and then asks if we're sisters. That would be really nice. He does his usual bragging, leaves. Cynthia gives us a nice potion for the Psyducks and we're on our way. In Celestic Town we come across this grunt and we beat him very easily with Barker again. And then this old lady comes up who introduces herself as the Elder, but it's also Cynthia's gran. Which is very handy because Cynthia asked us to give this old charm to her. We end up going and taking a look in the ruins, and while we're doing that, Cyrus interrupts us. He challenges us to battle, but we beat him with Barker, no problem. He calls us remarkable and then leaves. But Cynthia's grand for helping and gives us HMO3 surf, which is very nice. As we're leaving, Cynthia is waiting for us outside just to make sure that we're okay. She really does act like a sister. However, she then tells us to go to the library in Canalave City, which is our next destination anyway. As we're crossing the bridge in Canalave City, we're met by our rival Gavin, who challenges us to battle again. We flex our superior evolution, and then he brings in Dragonite. This thing is scary. He brings Marcus down to 4 HP, and then we switch into Tony, who survives Aqua Tail on just 9 HP. Our team's in rough shape, but we bring in Pearl, and she survives 2 Aqua Tails on just 2 HP and gets off a Shadow Sneak to leave it with a sliver. But we can use Priority Shadow Sneak again and take it out, finally. This isn't his last Pokemon however, as he still has an Ampharos, but we take a chance and switch into Tony on a discharge. Thankfully, the Ampharos can't hit us and we can take it out with Bone Rush. Our team was beat up pretty badly after that fight, but we survived. After that close battle, we're training our team and we come across a Huntail, who KOs Tony with Water Pulse. However, at Fleagle Ironworks we come across an Omanyte, which we catch and call Lord. We head into the fight against Byron, and he leads Weavile, and we lead with Barker. He sets up a nasty plot, which is a little scary, but we stay in anyway, and we can knock it out with 2 Sparks, after he just went for Fury Swipes. He then brings in his next Pokemon, which is Kangaskhan. I stay in as he goes for Outrage, and then we hit a Spark, which brings him to just above half. I know he's locked into Outrage now, so I swap into Clive, who can resist the incoming Outrage, and thankfully the Kangaskhan gets confused. The Kangaskhan then breaks through to hit another Outrage, and we hit Connect with a Surf, which brings him down to a Sliver. We can then take him out with an Aqua Jet. Byron then sends out his last Pokemon, which is Xatu. I'm not really scared of this thing, and it just goes for Confuse Ray as we stay in, but we hit ourselves in confusion. He just sets up a Wish, and then we can KO with another Surf, winning us the fight and our 6th gym badge. As we leave the gym, we are greeted with Gavin, who congratulates us on the win, but then says that he's tougher, and then tells us to come to the library. We unfortunately listen, and are greeted with Professor Rowan and Lucas. They're talking, and a bunch of plot stuff happens, and then a bomb goes off or something. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention. But I was told to go and check out the lake, which I end up going and doing, and come across all these Magikarp that are just lying around. We find Commander Saturn at the lake, who we beat easily, and then we decide to go and check on Lucas, who somehow lost to Mars, so then we fight her and we win very easily. She says something about their grand plans or something, I don't know, I wasn't listening again, and then Rowan asks us to go and check on Gavin. And as we're travelling through the snow routes, we come across Maylene, who's just out in her t-shirt, you know, in a blizzard. And there's nothing wrong with that apparently. So as we're training our team up outside the Acuity lakefront, we come across this Toxicroak, who kills Marcus with a single boosted revenge. Which is a little unfortunate since in the battle with Candace she leads with a War Turtle, but we lead with Barker anyway and kill it with a single Spark. She then brings in her next Pokemon Spiritomb, which is a little scary, especially after hitting one Crunch. It sets up with a nasty plot. We hit it with a Spark and get the paralysis, but Candace heals up with a Hyper Potion. We survive on this wind on just 2 HP, but we can outspeed and take it out with another one, bringing in Kecleon. We end up switching out into Clive, who deals with this with another Surf. This is a little scary, but I decide to stay in anyway and take the risk and hit it with a Surf to below half. We then survive Discharge in Yellow and take it out with another Surf. We make it to the lakefront to find out that Gavin has been beat by Commander Jupiter, which makes him sad for some reason, even although we've beaten him lots, but he says that he'll get stronger. I meet Luca in the Galactic building and we watch Cyrus give some speech or something to a bunch of grunts, and then they all leave, and then we take him on at the top of the building for another battle, which turned out to be surprisingly easy with the help of Eric knocking out his final Golbat. He then just proceeds to give us a Master Ball for some reason, and then tells us all about their plans and where they're going. And then we find the Lake Trio being locked in this room with Commander Saturn, keeping them prisoner. So we challenge him to another battle to free them, but it was pretty easy with the help of Terry the Flygon. So we get to press a button and release the Lake Trio, who disappear. Okay. We then climb to the top of Mount Coronet to Spear Pillar and enter a double battle with the 2 commanders and Gavin, but then we just bring in Clive and surf everything to knock everything out, including his Ninetales. After the battle, Gavin says that he will stay and help us, who then runs away, as the 2 legendaries are summoned. Cyrus just keeps talking though, and I stopped listening as the Lake Trio showed up. I don't know. Giratina also shows up, which is pretty cool, and then a portal opens and the Lake Trio disappears into it. And Cynthia shows up as well, which is really nice. She'll actually help us. We head into the Distortion World and challenge Cyrus one last time. He leads Pinsir, which is scary because it sets up Sword Stance, but one crit spark takes him out. He then brings in his next Pokemon Abomasnow, and I bring out Clive. He goes for an Ingrain as I hit him for just above half with a Metal Claw. He hits us with Wood Hammer next, which does massive damage, and we decide to go for a Sword Stance. This means that we can't stay in, and we decide to switch into Sean, who also takes over half. I bring in Barker for the Intimidate, but Wood Hammer still does over half, and I thought that I could knock him out with a Crunch, but I don't, and he hits us with Wood Hammer for the KO, but the Recoil takes him out as well, and I bring in Terry as he brings in Ursaring. I go for Dragon Claw, which does over half, and he hits us with a Slash to above half, so we just take him out with another one. He then brings in Sharpedo, and I go into Hariyama, who then gets taken out with one more Slash. I'm not too sure what to do here, but I decide to bring in Pearl. He goes for a Taunt, and I hit him with a Shadow Ball for above half. I then decide to go for a Shadow Sneak for some more chip damage, as he gets healed up with a Berry. We get hit below half with an Aqua Jet, and we hit another Shadow Ball, bringing him into the red, but then he's healed up. I just stay in looking to try and get some more chip damage, but we get KO'd by another Aqua Jet. I then get a safe switch into Terry, who can knock it out with another Dragon Claw. His final Pokemon is a Raichu, so I decide to switch into Eric, and he get hit by a Quick Attack on the switch in. I go for Psybeam, doing decent damage as he hits us with a Tail Whip. One more Psybeam gets us the win over Cyrus. He says that we won't be able to stop Giratina, and then he runs away. Cynthia then heals up her Pokemon, and then we go to challenge Giratina. He floats down menacingly from the sky and stares us down, and then we enter battle. I lead with Terry, and promptly decide to run away. It's not worth the risk. Cynthia is surprised by our battle tricks, but then she thanks us for saving the world. However, we then have another tragedy. As we're fighting this unavoidable trainer who has a Rapidash, I decide to switch into Clive, who gets hit by a critical Fire Blast and immediately knocked out. That was a really unfortunate loss. So in the fight with Volkner, he leads with the Slowbro as I lead with Winston. I'm able to knock out Slowbro with 2 feint attacks, the second one being a crit, and he brings in his next Pokemon, Huntail. I decide to switch into Jane, who gets hit by an Aqua Tail on the switch in. We then knock it out with a Thunder Punch. He then brings out his next Pokemon, Moltres, but I have the perfect Pokemon already out and can knock it out with 2 Thunder Punches. His last Pokemon is a Golbat, which we easily knock out with a Thunderbolt. This gives us the victory and all 8 badges. However, as we're making our way through Victory Road, we come across this random trainer that has an Abomasnow. We hit a Psybeam to half, and then he knocks us out with Wood Hammer. So the team for the Elite Four is Winston and Ursaring with Slash, Fake Tears, Strength and Feint Attack, Terry the Flygon with Crunch, Dragon Claw, Sludge and Rock Smash, Jane the Elixir with Thunder Punch, Thunderbolt, Low Kick and Light Screen, Julie the Tyranitar with Rock Slide, Drill Peck, Earthquake and Crunch, Flutter the Mesprit with Extrasensory, Lava Plume, Razor Leaf and Charm, and Lord the Omasar with Ancient Power, Tickle, Mudshot and Surf. So the first member of the Elite Four is Aaron, who starts off the battle with an Electrode as I lead with Winston. I make the swap into Julia as the Electrode goes for a Magnet Rise, which is unfortunate because I now can't hit it with Earthquake. He then hits us with a Gyro Ball, which is strange because he's a lot faster than we are, and we connect with a Rock Slide, which leaves him in the red after Sandstorm. He then gets healed up as we hit another Rock Slide to bring him back down into the yellow. Electrode then goes for another weak Gyro Ball as we knock it out with Drill Peck for the accuracy. This brings in Aaron's next Pokemon, Executor. I'm not very scared of this thing, so I just stay in and hit it with a Crunch for the one shot. So next, Aaron decides to bring in Frostlass, which is really scary. Here I decide to swap back into Winston as the Frostlass just sets up Hail, which is really scary because of her ability. Snowcloak. I stay in and tank a Blizzard to under half and hit it with a Feint Attack, which does over half, but she heals up with a Berry. I decide to go back into Julia to set up the Sandstorm, and she misses a Blizzard, which is great. She outspeeds however and sets up the Hail again, and we end up missing our next Crunch. I stay in to try and hit another Crunch, but we get hit by Blizzard to below half, and miss the Crunch. I end up switching into Flutter, who takes above half with Blizzard, but get brought below half with Hail. I switch into Jane for the next Blizzard, who tanks it with above half health. I then decide to go for a Thunder Punch as the Frostlass decides to go for Ice Shard, but we miss the Thunder Punch. So this time I switch into Lord as she sets up the Hail again. Frostlass ends up going for a Captivate, which lowers their special defense by 2 stages, so she survives the incoming Surf with a Sliver and hits us with another Ice Shard, but we take it out with another Surf. He then brings in his next Pokemon, which is a Slowking, which is pretty scary. I switch out to Terry as the Slowking sets up with a Nasty Plot. I'm able to KO with 2 Crunchies after it only sets up a second Nasty Plot, and this brings in Golduck, so I switch back into Lord as the Golduck goes for Amnesia. I decide to go for Ancient Power in hopes of an Omniboost as we only get a hit with a Zen Head. It sets up with Amnesia as we do very little damage, but we do get a critical hit with Mudshot. I then switch into Jane and we get brought low, but we are able to knock it out with a final Thunder Punch, getting us the victory. This brings us on to the next fight against Bertha. She leads with a Rhydon as we again lead with Winston, so I immediately switch out into Flutter, who tanks the incoming hammer arm. We hit it with a Razor Leaf, which brings it down to about a quarter as it connects with a Stone Age that brings us below half health. However, we do outspeed and can knock it out with a second Razor Leaf. Bertha then brings out her next Pokemon, which is Huntail, which I'm not happy about seeing considering it killed our Rhyperior, but we do bring in Jane, and are able to knock it out with just one Thunder Punch. Revenge has never felt better. She then brings in her next Pokemon, Hippowdon. I decide to do some pivoting, so I switch into Terry on the incoming Earthquake, who dodges it with his Levitate, and then I switch over to Lord on the incoming Double Edge, and we're then able to knock it out with just one Surf. She then brings in her next Pokemon, Electabuzz, which is a bad matchup against Lord, but I don't think that it will be able to knock me out with just one hit, so I stay in and tank a Screech, and we hit it with a Mudshot to below half, and we lower its speed, but it does heal up a bit with the Citrus Berry. So then we switch over to Flygon again on the incoming Thunder Punch. Bertha then unpredictably switches into Clefable, so we hit that with the Dragon Claw, doing over half. I decide to stay in and just knock it out with a second Dragon Claw. This brings back Electabuzz, so I decide to just stay in again, and we're able to knock it out with one more Dragon Claw, getting staticked on the way out of the fight. This brings us to the third Elite Four member, Flint, who leads with an Armaldo as we lead with Winston, so I switch out into Lord as it fails Protect. I'm then able to knock it out in one shot with Surf. This brings in his next Pokemon, Claydol, who we're able to knock out in a single Surf as well. His third Pokemon, however, is Dusknoir, which is a little bit scarier, so I decide to switch into Winston as he only gets hit with a Payback. Next turn I go for Faint Attack, which brings him down to about half as we get hit with a boosted Payback, which brings us down to about half. I then decide to switch into Julia, who takes very little damage from another Payback, and are able to knock it out next turn with another Crunch, despite it healing up to about 3/4 with a Berry. This brings in his fourth Pokemon, Charizard, which is good because we have the Sandstorm up, which boosts our special defense. We take a Flamethrower very well because of this, and hit it with a 4x super effective Rock Slide for the one shot. So now he's only down to one Pokemon, Crobat, which is fine because we still have Sandstorm up and can knock it out with 2 more Rock Slides. Which leads to the final Elite Four member, Lucian. He leads with the Kangaskhan as we still lead with Winston. We're able to hit a couple of slashes which bring the Kangaskhan low as it outrages twice, bringing us into the yellow. It hits through Confusion and brings us down super low, but we're able to knock it out with another slash, bringing in Steelix. So I swap into Lord on the incoming Double Edge and I'm able to knock it out with a single Surf. This brings in Glalie next. The Glalie sets up Hail and we're able to hit an Ancient Power, bringing it down to about a quarter. The Glalie is faster than us and sets up Hail, but we hit an Ancient Power, which brings it down to about a quarter. So on the next turn, the incoming Ice Beam does very little to us and we can knock it out with another Ancient Power, but no Omni Boost unfortunately. This brings in Lucian's next Pokemon, another Frostlass. So I immediately decide to switch out into Julia to set up the Sandstorm, as we're hit with a weak Ice Shard. The next turn, however, the Frostlass outspeeds and sets up Hail, so we miss our next Crunch. I'm a little unsure what to do here, because I was really hoping to have knocked this thing out already, but I decide to switch into Flutter this turn, who again gets hit below half with a Blizzard and the incoming Hail damage, which is about the same as last time I guess. So I decide to switch back into Julia to set up the Sandstorm again to get rid of the Snow Cloak. Next turn the Frostlass predictably goes for Hail, but this time we finally hit the Crunch, knocking this thing out in one hit. Finally, some luck on our side. This leaves Lucian with just one final Pokemon, a Meganium, which isn't all that threatening to be honest. I stay in with Julia and hit a Drill Peck, knocking this thing out in one shot, giving us the win over all of the Elite Four members and leaving just the champion left. Which I'm quite scared of, but it's the final fight, so let's finish this run. The champion ends up being Cynthia. So after gaining our trust and becoming our friend, she has now turned into our enemy. Let's do this. She leads off with Heracross as I again lead with Winston. I know a fighting move is coming my way, so I swap into Flutter on the incoming Close Combat. I then pivot into Lord on the incoming Megahorn, who takes it below half. I go into Flutter on the second Close Combat and then switch into Terry, who dodges another Megahorn. A critical hit Dragon Claw knocks it out, which brings in Salamence, which intimidates us. I switch back to Lord, who gets hit with the incoming Dragon Claw, and we survive on 17 HP. The Salamence outspeeds and goes for Fly, which means we miss our Tickle. So I switch over to Jane to tank the incoming Fly, and hit him with a Thunder Punch, which does okay damage. We get hit with a few Dragon Claws and we survive on 24 HP and hit a Thunderbolt, which brings him down into the yellow, but he heals up a bit with a Berry. I'm not really sure what to do now, so I switch over to Winston as Salamence goes for another Fly. I stay in, hoping to knock him out with a Strength as we could take Fly with over half, but he survives with just a sliver. He's then healed up with a full restore as we hit him with another strength. I don't think that Winston will be too useful for the rest of the battle, so I let him go down in order to get a safe switch into another Pokemon. I'm really nervous at this point, so I bring in Julia. We get hit with a Dragon Claw to just 60 HP, but we're able to knock it out with a Rock Slide. This brings in Gyarados, who intimidates us. I need a safe swap back into Jane, so I bring in Lord, who gets brought to 17 HP and then taken out with another Hydro Pump. His sacrifice means that we're safely able to bring in Jane, who can knock it out with a Thunder Punch. However, Cynthia's next Pokemon is an Alakazam, and I'm kinda scared, so I swap into Julia. She reads me though, and switches out into Porygon Z, who takes it with above half. So therefore I switch over to Terra, who can knock it out with a Dragon Claw. This brings Alakazam back in, so I decide to switch back into Julia. The Alakazam only goes for Calm Mind however, and I'm able to knock it out with a Crunch, bringing in Clefable. I bring it down to the red as it goes for a Metronome and only rolls Kinesis. The Clefable continues to set up Minimize, and that's getting quite scary. I decide to switch over to Jane, who gets brought to just 2 HP with the Sandstorm. So to be on the safe side, I decide to set up Light Screen as we're taken out by Double Slap. This gives us a safe switch into Flutter, who hits a Razor Leaf but is unfortunately put to sleep with Sing. I do know that this is Cynthia's last Pokemon, and I also know that the Sandstorm will eventually knock it out, so I just allow Flutter to sit there and let her go down. Which lets me bring in my only full health Pokemon, Terry, who knocks it out with a final Rock Smash, giving us the victory over Cynthia and the whole run. My goodness, what a fight. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've never done anything like this before. I've never really Nuzlocked a Pokemon game. I've never done a randomizer or anything, and I thought that it would be rather fun to combine the two aspects and bring it together in a video. And it turned out to be really fun, and I'm really looking forward to being able to make more of these in the future, or even just other types of challenge runs. I'm not too sure yet what to do next, but since I had so much fun with this one, I'll probably be doing another randomizer in the future. If you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you. I've never edited a video or anything either, so the whole process of this has been very new to me, but hopefully I will get better over time. And if you want to see this, then perhaps subscribe to the channel, like the video maybe, I don't know, you don't have to. Thank you for watching, I've been Elisha, have a wonderful day.